Kiena Dawes, An Echo of Many, Part 1. Hello, I'm H.G. Tudor. Earlier this week, Ryan Wellings was convicted of assault and controlling and coercive behaviour in relation to his former partner, Kiena Dawes, the lady who appears in the centre of the thumbnail on your screen. He was, however, acquitted of the charge of manslaughter over her suicide. Kiena Dawes left a note essentially stating that Wellings had murdered her, and she left a months-old baby as she went to a railway line and laid down in front of an oncoming train in July 2022. The impact of the abuse that she was suffering from led her to take her own life. Notwithstanding this, Wellings was acquitted of the manslaughter charge, which has led one bereaved mother to claim that the jury did not understand the devastating abuse. Those of you who watch my videos, many of you have been doing so for a substantial amount of time. My work, through videos, books, and blog articles, along with consultations, has enabled you to understand the nature of the abuser, to understand that most abusers are narcissists, and what that means. You've been able to understand the mindset, the behaviours, the rationale, what drives the narcissist, and most importantly of all, what you have been able to do to secure your freedom. My unrivaled insight, as part of the creation of my legacy, has given you this freedom. There may be others of you who are recent additions to this channel. You may well still be in the grip of an ensnarement. It might be the case that you're struggling to understand what you're dealing with and how you can deal with it. You're in the right place to gain that understanding. What is clear from my own observations and the many, many thousands of people that I have consulted with and who have written to me is the fact that many people still do not understand that most abusers are narcissists and what that actually means. That the victims don't understand, the families and friends of victims don't understand, the decision makers charged with dealing with the abusers do not understand, the judiciary, lawyers, the police, healthcare professionals. By actually understanding what the person is that engages in this behaviour, what is driving them, why they behave that way, and what you can do about it, it provides information which literally saves lives. I've provided this information to extend my legacy. People have received it because for once they're receiving the unvarnished truth as to what's actually going on. But it remains clear that so many people are at a loss as to understand what's going on. And, as I've pointed out on many other occasions, there are so many people providing information which get it hopelessly wrong. They either miss out large chunks of information, provide incorrect information, and indeed, in many instances, provide advice and information which is dangerous to the recipient. I have highlighted the instances of people who do not know what they're talking about, that they fail to identify narcissism, or when they've spoken about narcissism, it's evident they don't truly understand it. Kiena Dawes, the tragedy of her loss of life, is but an echo of the situation of many other people. And Anne Cusack and Lauren Gregory, along with Chelsea Heatley and Monique Rubins, have compiled an article in the Daily Mail which touches upon this echo. The report reads, "Women whose lives have been destroyed by abusive men have slammed the judicial system after Ryan Wellings was cleared of manslaughter following his partner's suicide, after he subjected her to a disgusting campaign of abuse, sustained behaviours, demonstrative of a sustained need to assert control and draw fuel." Kiena Dawes, 23, from Fleetwood, Lancashire, took her own life after enduring more than 2 years of horrific domestic abuse at the hands of Wellings, whose fate was decided at Preston Crown Court on Monday. Although cleared of manslaughter, Wellings was convicted of assault and coercive and controlling behaviour for the terrifying abuse he inflicted upon Kiena. The first defendant to be tried for unlawful killing of his partner, who died by suicide following domestic abuse, Wellings egregiously blew a kiss to his current girlfriend from the dock after being found not guilty over Kiena's death, at which point Kiena's sister burst into tears. The verdict has caused uproar among Kiena's loved ones after the mother of a baby girl wrote in a heartbreaking suicide note, "I was murdered. Ryan Wellings killed me." I've detailed previously in the article Repeat some of the abuse that she was subjected to. I needn't go over it again. However, he did state, "Hitting you is like hitting a man," and on one occasion dunked her head in a bath and said, "Say goodbye to your baby." In one incident, just 11 days before Miss Dawes' death, he launched her into a radiator with such force it broke the appliance off the wall, then slammed a door in her face, knocking her out and leaving her with blood pouring from her head. Now, victims of domestic abuse and families of women who took their own lives following abuse at the hands of their partners have opened up about the pain they have been caused by abusive men and slammed the verdict in Wellings' case. They have accused the jury at Preston Crown Court of a total lack of understanding over the devastating consequences of domestic abuse and called upon the authorities to provide more support for victims. Sharon Holland, 51, stated she has barely stopped crying since Wellings was cleared of Kiena Dawes' manslaughter after her own daughter took her life in February 2023 following horrific abuse from her partner. Chloe Holland, 23, that's the young lady that you can see in the top left of the thumbnail, died by suicide after she had endured months of physical and psychological abuse from Mark Masterson. Masterson, 26, controlled Chloe's appearance, control through appearance, isolated her from friends, a common manipulation to make it easier to assert control over the intimate partner primary source, and caused psychological abuse and encouraged her to kill herself during their relationship. On one occasion, Masterson assaulted Chloe with a dumbbell, physical assault, assertion of control, before handing her a knife and ordering her to harm herself. In his brutal beatings, he deliberately gave her black eyes so she would be unable to see her baby son. Physical abuse, triangulation. He even put a tracking device on her phone which prevented her from escaping him and ensured he could claw her back into his clutches on the occasions when she did break free from him. Hoovering. Assertion of control. Just before her death in February 2023, Chloe reported Masterson to Hampshire police, who opened an investigation. But due to the severe psychological impact of what she endured, she took her own life. Masterson was arrested and charged with coercive and controlling behaviour, to which he pleaded guilty in October 2023. He was sentenced to just 41 months in prison. Chloe's bereaved mother Sharon opened up shortly after Masterson was sentenced to raise awareness of how domestic abuse can have fatal consequences. Now campaigning to make homicide by a coercive control a specific crime in the United Kingdom, Sharon slammed the length of her daughter's abuser's sentence while describing how his horrific actions affected Chloe. "No amount of time in prison will bring my daughter back, but less than 5 years for contributing to her death just is not fair." Kiena Dawes' story brings back painful memories for Sharon, who can't help but draw parallels with her daughter. She said, "Since the verdict came in, I've been crying on and off all day. I feel so angry." Kiena's case echoes Chloe's so much, and I'm heartbroken the family have not received justice for what he did to her. Another child has been left without a mother due to abuse. There's such a stigma around suicide and what leads a victim to take their life. People need to understand the toll abuse and coercive control has on someone's mental health. The jury clearly did not understand the devastating effects coercive control has on a person's mental health. Watching the videos of him laughing after being charged with manslaughter disgusted me. And blowing kisses to his girlfriend and smoking in court after the verdict was read, does he have no remorse for his daughter no longer having a mother? Well, the short answer to that is, as you know, no. What sort of person does that? It's horrific. You know that this is the behaviour of a narcissist. You know that it's the behaviour of an individual with pathologically ingrained behaviours that necessitate the utilisation of manipulations, both benign and malign, to assert control, to draw fuel, to seek character traits and residual benefits. You know that this individual cannot change. You know that this person has no emotional empathy. You know that this person is hypersensitive to threats to control and responds often in a malign fashion to regain that control. You know that this is often a perception of the narcissist where there is no true threat to control, but it's from the perception of the narcissist which results in the behaviours that flow from it. It's evident that this lady, Sharon Holland, does not fully understand the nature of her daughter's abuser. By asking what kind of person does that, demonstrates that while she is looking to campaign in relation to making homicide through coercive control and abuse a criminal offence, that she doesn't grasp precisely the nature of the individual. Another individual affected is Tracy Kand. You'll see her in the top right of the screen. She was driven to attempt suicide as a consequence of abuse from her ex-partner. During an 8-year campaign of harassment and violence, sustained behaviour, lack of emotional empathy, Mark Bagworth, aged 55, put crushed glass inside Tracy's shoes, hid her car keys and urinated on the family's rabbit. At 6'2" in height, he kicked 4'11" Tracy, who has a chronic degenerative bone disorder, until she was covered in blood. Physical violence to assert control and draw fuel, absence of emotional empathy, utilisation of vulnerability against the victim. He appeared at Lincoln Crown Court in August last year and pleaded guilty to 2 charges of ABH and harassment without violence. He was handed a 23-month prison sentence, suspended for 2 years, 30 days of rehabilitation and a 10-year restraining order. The mother of one said that if she hadn't left Bagworth, she thinks she'd have ended up dead. It took so much courage to leave him, but it saved my life. To the outside world, I had a good job. I was educated and comfortably off. People could not have dreamed what I was going through day after day. People tried to warn me and tell me about him, but he was so far inside my head, he had complete control over me. I could not think for myself. My life was consumed by him totally. There'll be those of you that are familiar with the way that the narcissist invades the victim, taking them over, making them the sole purpose of that individual's life, so that they're isolated from other people, so that it cannot be helped, and they become wholly reliant upon their abuser. She continued by explaining that over time he systematically removed everyone who mattered to me, alienating me from friends and family, so that I felt I had nobody left to confide in. He subjected her to indirect punishments for things she had done to upset him. He cut up my daughter's hair extensions, triangulation with object. He insisted it wasn't him, denial, but I knew logically it had to be, yet I questioned whether I was going mad. Once, when he was very angry, he urinated on my daughter's rabbit. Another time, he left the front door open and our kit had escaped and we never saw it again. In arguments, he would throw ashtrays or pots at Tracy. And then in 2019, he threw boiling water over her on 2 occasions. She explained we had visitors and I went into the kitchen to make drinks. Mark was on the phone in there, and he was so angry at me disturbing him, threat to control, that he chucked the kettle towards me, splashing my arm with boiling water. It took him 2 attempts to make sure he got me. Assertion of control through physical violence, absence of emotional empathy. I was so ashamed I didn't even cry out. I just ran upstairs to change my clothes and carried on as if nothing had happened. To the outside world, I was someone with a successful career and a happy family, and I blamed myself for what was happening to me. At work, I covered my bruises with makeup, and people presumed I had injuries from my horses. After suffering at Bagworth's hands for years, she reached a point where she could see no other way out. I got so desperate that I took an overdose, all the medication I could find in the house, and I went to sleep on the sofa. It was a genuine attempt to end my life because I saw no way out. Luckily, I survived, and I felt so ashamed that I considered leaving my daughter. Yet I know the shame belongs to the abuser, although of course the abuser feels no shame, and not to the victim. Tracy said it's vital to speak out to the right people and get help. She said family members, however well-meaning, might not be the best people to talk to, and to hear a stranger horrified by what you see as your normal life is powerful. For over a year on, I'm still receiving support. The damage will never fully heal. For months afterwards, I used to ask myself, what would Mark do? What would Mark say? I lost the ability to be myself. That is slowly coming back now. For everyone trapped in an abusive relationship, I would beg you to get help. The lady in the bottom left of your screen is Jolene Norman. She read Kiena Dawes' story and felt intense empathy for her, having been subjected to horrific abuse. The mother of two, aged 31, lied to her family members about her partner Dale Gretz's physical and emotional abuse because she was trauma bonded to him. As you know, the trauma bond is part of the addiction that occurs between empathic victim and narcissist. Gretzy, also known as Dale Scott, was jailed for 32 months in December 2022 after attacking Jolene in her home. Jolene said, "Reading about Kiena, I can relate to her so much. You feel trauma bonded and worthless, and you feel trapped and lonely. You want to ask for help, but you're not always strong enough. I even lied to family members to hide what he was doing to me. I was at such a low point when I was in the abuse." She met Gretzy on social media, hunting ground, and soon discovered they had mutual friends. He was friendly at first, but then the behaviour changed, and he attacked her in a drunken rage. He cut her with scissors, broke a bathroom door in two, and threatened to pour acetone into her wounds. Physical violence, destruction of property, use of threat. After Gretzy was put behind bars, Jolene discovered she was pregnant with his child. I somehow got my life back together and concentrated on raising my daughter. But after he was released from prison, Gretzy tracked her down and demanded to see his daughter. He barged in and I knew immediately he was in a rage. He ignited fury. He was furious. He had ended up in prison because of what he did to me. He saw it all as my fault. Blame shifting. Our daughter was asleep upstairs and Dale was grabbing my hair, pulling me back into the room every time I tried to run away from him. He punched, kicked and slapped me, assertion of control through physical violence, and it was only when I somehow found a superhuman strength to push him out of the window that I was saved. It was a ground floor window which was already partially open, so I just shoved him and out he went. I closed it quickly and called for help and he was arrested. Gresty once again appeared at Chester Crown Court in December 2022 and was convicted of ABH and breaching a restraining order. Threat to kill and non-fatal strangulation were left to lie on the file, meaning there was enough evidence to bring a charge against him. But the CPS decided it wasn't in the public interest to proceed. He was jailed for 32 months. Jolene explained, "I've learned to spot the signs of an abuser and I never put myself in that position again." Reflect on Kiena's case, she said, the police have victim support and domestic violence advocates, but are they doing enough? I was failed and I think Kiena was failed too. Now she has left her child behind because of a monster. The fourth individual is Richard Spencer, who will be familiar to those of you who had seen previously my Prison Boss Narcissist series and also the repetition of that following his television programme, My Wife, the Abuser. I needn't go into the circumstances of Mr. Spencer's abuse, but safe to say he's a male victim, and there are many male victims of narcissists who abuse. And if you want to understand more about what he went through and how he similarly did not understand what he was dealing with, you can watch those series. What is clear here, there are 4 victims of abuse, a further 1 who took her own life as a consequence of it, and 3 survivors. But in each instance, notice the narcissist is not mentioned. The behaviours of the narcissist are not mentioned. Some individuals talk about knowing the signs of an abuser, but it remains to be seen whether they truly understand what they are dealing with. You will know from the statistics that these 4 individuals are but a drop in the water of the number of people who are abused repeatedly by individuals who are narcissists. The ability to spot the red flags, the black flags, and to know what you're actually dealing with and what you should do is life-saving information. And that's why it becomes all the more important for videos such as this and associated work of mine is shared and disseminated far and wide. That enables people to understand truly what they're dealing with so that they avoid the mistakes and that they go down the correct route. These are just a handful of examples that show the echoes of what has happened to Kiena Dawes and how work such as mine is hugely important to ensure people truly understand what it is that they're dealing with. I'm H.G. Tudor. Thank you for listening.